Hi love bugs, welcome back to the channel. I almost forgot that I got this wig for Halloween, and I didn't end up wearing it, but then when I was going to return it, I told myself I can use it for my Fearless video, and I almost forgot about it, but here we are. No, crisis averted. So, of course, we're going to be talking about Fearless, the final book in the in the Powerless trilogy. Yeah, I mean, that's what the video will be about. What else did I have to say? So I'm going to start off with my little disclaimer in case you guys have not seen my videos before. I am going to be coming at this with like kind of a critical perspective, but I do want to say that I did have a good time reading this book. Like, of all the books, I think that this one was the best written and was the most enjoyable. I did genuinely enjoy this book, and I think that the author improved a lot throughout the course of the series. I have a lot of like positive things to say. I have some negative things to say, but I'm not trying to come into this with any kind of negative energy. I think that I keep my criticisms pretty fair in all of my videos. And I know that a lot of people who watch BookTube are also like writers themselves and want to improve on their own writing, want to engage critically with books. So that's really what I'm trying to do here, is just have a genuine critical engagement with the content. I think that's fun. I think that's constructive. It's not in any way meant to be derogatory towards the book. I look so good in this wig. I can't get over it. My lips are kind of pale though. Kind of washes me out. So just general thoughts. I actually haven't seen a whole lot of reviews of this book. I feel like with Reckless, I was pretty immediately getting a lot of reviews for the book on my For You page and stuff. And the main issue that I think most people had with Reckless was that it didn't have much of a plot. It was a lot of Peyton and Kai wandering through the desert for basically the entire duration of the book, and the plot just was meandering and kind of boring. This book is not that. Lauren Roberts took that criticism and did a complete 180. This book is crazy. I'm so excited. I feel like I have gossip that I'm about to share with you. Like, that's how crazy this book gets. So strap in. Again, I enjoyed this book. Like, I had a good time reading this book. Would I say that it was good? I wouldn't go that far, but I do think that it is a drastic improvement on a lot of Lauren Roberts' previous writing. I think that it has the best character work. I think that the plot is a lot better. By the end, the plot kind of goes off the rails, so I might amend that later, but I had a good time. Like, I was here for it. Let's get into it. So we start off with this dramatic prologue, and I have some screenshots of it that I can read to you guys. So this is the opening monologue, the proem of the prologue. There are very few reasons for a meeting between two cloaked figures in the dead of night. Unsurprisingly, the list is as short as it is unseemly. For some, it is love. For most, it is lust. Lust for money, lust for purpose, lust for revenge. But in some cases, it is love that spurs these lusts, or rather the loss of it. Though these odd contradictories are rare, they are consistently tragic. And this, I feel like, is a poor representation of the rest of the book, because when I read this, I was like, oh my god. What are we doing? Just a little bit melodramatic to me. I think that's what it is. It's the melodrama of it all. So we open up with this prologue. We've got two unnamed characters meeting in the dead of night for purposes of lost love. Gonna be honest, I still don't fully know who these bitches are. I was reflecting on this book a couple days ago, and I was like, wait a minute. Who were these people? It's probably Kit and one of the other characters who we can discuss later, but I don't think it's ever confirmed. Maybe I just missed it, and you can let me know in the comments if this is just a me being dumb moment. But genuinely, I do not know who these people were. Also, let's just break this down. Though these odd contradictories are rare, they are consistently tragic. I don't think I don't think that these things even are contradictory. I think they're just different things that exist in different time. Like, I don't even think they contradict each other, really. Also, I don't know if you can say contradictories in this in this sentence format. I mean, I guess you can. These odd contradictories. Contradictory is an adjective. I guess it can be substantive here, but I guess it works. I guess like technically it works. It just doesn't really flow off the tongue as well. It's just a little bit weird. I say this because like I am like trying to break down the grammar, like trying to break down the writing style of Lauren Roberts a little bit. That's something that I talked about a lot in my Powerless video, and she has drastically improved since Powerless. I want to reiterate that because it really is impressive. But like once again, it just feels like we're trying to be more dramatic by like kind of shifting up the language of it. And I don't know that it nails it all the time, you know? Anyway, we've got these two figures who are meeting to talk about their lust, and that's kind of the prologue. We don't get a whole lot of detail, which I think is why it's so difficult for me to place who the fuck they are. And then chapter 1 picks up immediately where we left off from book 2. I will remind you where that is in case you don't remember. So Peyton has been brought back from the desert land of Dor by Kai after she escaped after killing the king at the end of book 1. Book 2 is just them wandering through the desert to get back, and at the very end of book 2, Peyton goes before Kit, who is now the king, and he proposes to her, and that's where we left off. It's so juicy. And so we pick up immediately there. We're still in this scene, and they're still getting engaged. And honestly, I think it kind of slays. I'm gonna be real with you guys. I think that the series could have started here. Like, I feel like this is where we kind of should have got the ball rolling. Like, Peyton has been brought in. She is a powerless person in this powerful society. She's a criminal. She's an outlaw. And now she has to marry the king, but she's secretly in love with his brother, who is also the head of the guard or whatever. That's juicy. That's good. I feel like we could have started here and we didn't really need everything that led up to it, which I know is kind of a crazy thing to say. I think it's just because I personally don't really like the trial like format of YA books. A lot of YA fantasy has this trial format where the characters have to undergo trials to meet some kind of goal, and that's what book 1 is. Like, that's the only thing book 1 is, and I find that so boring. I just don't like it. I don't think it works for me. I think like Fourth Wing is kind of like that. Throne of Glass is kind of like that. It's just kind of a trope of the genre, a convention of the genre that I personally doesn't work for me. So I feel like we could have skipped that. We could have just picked up here, gotten kind of a background information about how Pei has killed the king and how she's one of the resistance members, and then like we could have started here. I really do think that. Kit explains to us that he wants to marry Peyton in order to unite Ilya with the ordinaries and the elites because they've been separated for so long and it's really fucked their economy, and now they have like no imports or exports with anybody else, so they're really like suffering. And part of rehabilitating that is welcoming ordinaries back into their society and opening up trade with the other kingdoms around them, which of course are also ordinary because nobody else was affected by the plague that caused elites to exist. I'm trying to give you guys the exposition too, in case you haven't read the first book or if you don't remember. So let me know if things get confusing. And so that's basically what we do in chapter 1. Peyton accepts the proposal because, I mean, what the fuck else is she gonna do? And then we go to chapter 2, and if you didn't remember, the books kind of switch narrator between Peyton and Kai. So every other chapter, basically, with not every other chapter, but pretty much every other chapter switches between Peyton and Kai's perspective. So chapter 2 is from Kai's perspective, and he is fucking insufferable. I really, almost couldn't get through this first fucking chapter with him because he is such an annoying narrator. I really cannot stress that enough. He is so dramatic and melodramatic, and it's just too much. He's very, broody, Tumblr, grunge boy. And it's like, I can't do it. I really just can't do it with this fucking man. I'll read you the first little snippet of chapter 2, just to exemplify my point. I thought I'd known torment until it wrapped around her finger. No, torment is tangible, and it gleams atop her tanned skin. I stare, unblinking, at the symbol my brother slid onto her finger. It is binding. It is infinite. It is my undoing. And he is this dramatic, and he is this pseudo-poetic in every one of his chapters. Genuinely every one of his chapters. He's babbling on about how I'm tormented by the union between my brother and Peyton, and my eternal soul bleeds for it. Like, it is ridiculous. Anyway, I cannot fucking stand him, and I've never been able to stand him, and I really just need to say that now. It's very fake deep Tumblr 2014, and I say that from experience, 'cause I think you all know that I was on Tumblr in 2014 just by looking at me. Not that I make it obvious. Here's another quote for him when he's talking about looking into Peyton's eyes. I'm not, my cosplay isn't accurate, I'm sorry. I've been nothing but willing when it comes to drowning in those ocean eyes. But now, I can't fathom drowning if she's not the anchor I'm sinking with. I hate you. I do think that his wielder ability in this scene is very strong, because, like, this is just something that happens in this scene alone. It actually doesn't come up really a whole lot again, like, in the same way throughout the rest of the book, but I thought it was very strong in this chapter, is that he is describing, like, he feels very overwhelmed and kind of overstimulated, and that shows through his ability, because his magic power that he has is that he can pick up on the magic powers of other people and use those, and so he uses that, and it kind of exemplifies the way that he's feeling emotionally. He's feeling very overwhelmed, and it really connects with his emotions in a way that feels very natural. And like previously, I feel like his wielder ability has just been kind of shoehorned into the story, but in this scene it really did connect. It really did feel authentic and natural, and I thought that it was very well done. Here's another quote for you guys. That damn ring is going to slip off her finger with how terribly her hands are trembling. Not really how rings work, but, and then they go into a broom closet. Oh, okay. They've left the throne room at this point, and they're rushing through the crowd, and Peyton's like, oh my god, I'm gonna have to be the queen, and Kai's in his, emo moment, and then they rush into a broom closet, and they kiss, and somebody opens the door. So, like, we're already getting such drama. Like, this book was so much drama, and I really did like that. Anyway, somebody opens the door of the broom closet while they're kissing. I feel like I'm all over, like, I feel insane right now. Maybe it's because the wig is squeezing my brain. Somebody opens a door while they're kissing in the broom closet, and it's this girl named Ellie, who I guess was in the first book, but I completely forgot about her, and I wrote in my notes that I don't know if we're supposed to know who she is, but we definitely are. I just forgot that she was there. She's like the handmaid of Peyton, and so they were like kind of friends in the first book. I don't remember her. She wasn't in the second book. And so there's also this guy who is named Callum. He's a mind reader, and he was part of the resistance, and like he knows Peyton through her dad. And we've seen him in previous books. He hasn't been a major character, I would say, but he's definitely been in the background. We saw him in book 2 talking to Kit, trying to convince him of something. We didn't know what it was just yet, but now we know that he was trying to convince Kit to marry Peyton, and I don't trust him. And I can verify that, like, I never trusted this man, so, no spoilers, but if I lived in a fantasy world, I would not trust a person who can read minds. I also think that Callum has, like, evil vizier energy, like, he really gives Jafar, and I just don't trust him. And I know that, like, in Fourth Wing, they killed all the people who were mind readers. Sorry, that's not a spoiler, I don't think. And when I read that, I was like, okay, that seems kind of ridiculous. Like, you can utilize this skill to your benefit. But I kind of get where they're coming from when I look at Callum. Pei is walking through the castle. She's adjusting to her life, knowing now that she will be the queen. And she sees Lenny from the Resistance. He's here. And Lenny is standing guard at Blair's room. She is the girl that they called Bitchy Blair, and she killed Adina at the very end of the book. Adina is Peyton's friend from book one. We have a lot of references to book one, and I guess to the novella that came out, like in a companion with the trilogy. I have not read the novella. I imagine if you have read the novella, this book would be that much more impactful for you. But yeah, so Blair, we haven't seen her at all in book two. And kind of the vibe that you get is that book two could have been like a prologue to this book. We could have wrapped up book two in probably 2 chapters and not changed the plot of this book. But yeah, so we're here and Bitchy Blair is there. And we haven't seen Bitchy Blair since book one. And I call her that intentionally because I had a lot of criticism in my first video about how like misogynistic the portrayal of Blair was. So, you know, I'm not just calling her a bitch. I'm making a point. And Peyton wants to get in, but Lenny won't let her in. Wow. Thanks a lot, Lenny. I do think that the portrayal of Blair gets better in this book, and we'll talk about it, but I also think that it's kind of odd. I think that a lot of the choices are odd, and I kind of want to talk about that too. Yeah, I really don't mind Peyton as a narrator. I think that she's fine. I think she's kind of fun. But Kai, I actually cannot stand. So we go to this royal assembly. Kit just tells everybody in a palace, and he just makes an announcement and says, "Hey guys, that disease thing that my dad told you about, where all the healers said that ordinary people have a disease that is dangerous and will wipe out all the elites, was actually a lie. He's been like coercing the healers to say that it's actually not true, and there's nothing to fear from ordinary people. They're just like you and me. It's fine." Which is, you know, a kind gesture from him. I think that we should keep in mind that in book two, everybody thought that he was actually going insane. He was like locked in his room and wouldn't talk to anybody and just wrote like sad poetry all day, and everybody genuinely does and did think that he was going mad. Like they were like, oh shit, he's like a mad king now. So maybe this is not, you might want to bring like a document or something to this speech just to be like, hey, I'm not making this up. I do just think that maybe we have an issue of you know, ethos. So Kai and Peyton have this little meeting spot under a willow tree, and it's also where Kai's sister is buried. His like sister who was a little girl and who we found out died in the last book. And so he's like, yeah, this is where Ava is buried. Do you remember how the last time we were here we almost fucked? And I was like, maybe don't say those two things at the same time. Says that she wants to go to the slums and see everybody as queen. So she and Kit and Kai like go into the slums and they ride around to be like, hey, you have an ordinary queen now, isn't that great? She came from the same place that you did, and now she's gonna be queen, which is sweet, I think. But then a bomb goes off. But we are getting these interludes from the king, the dead king, the dad. What the fuck is his name? Edric. And so we're getting these interludes from Edric where we learn a little bit more about the circumstances surrounding, I guess, his like mental decline, about his life, what led him to be evil. And we get this interlude from Dad, the evil king, and I didn't write down what happens in the first one, so just keep in mind that we did get an interlude from that. It tells Peyton, he's like, you know, this bomb going off, it really just shows that people don't want to accept you as queen, and they're really not happy about you being our queen. And so you're gonna have to prove yourself to them. You're gonna have to undergo some trials to prove yourself worthy of being queen. And when I say, like, I could have cried when he said this, I could not believe that we were doing the trial structure again. I just told you like 10 minutes ago how I don't like the trial structure, and I just feel like it doesn't really work that well. I feel like it just doesn't work for me. I can't pinpoint what I don't like about it. I just don't feel like it works as a plot structure. I don't like it. I don't feel the tension. I can never get a clear picture of what's even happening in the trials because they usually last like one chapter. So we're gonna do that again. And this did make me a little bit critical. I did have a moment of criticism in this scene because I need to level with you guys. Lauren Roberts, in this series in particular, has been accused of plagiarism of several young adult series, and it seems pretty compelling. Most of them I haven't read, so I cannot confirm nor deny, but Victoria Aveyard, who wrote one of the series that is she's accused of plagiarizing, has said that it is has come out against it as being plagiarized from her book. So there seems to be evidence that she's gotten a little bit more than just ideas from other people. There's this line that she kind of comes back to a couple times about greeting death as if he's an old friend. And I know that shit's ripped from Harry Potter, and she said it in the last book and brought it up many times in this book. So it's not even really that like she's taken common plot structures from things. It also is sometimes like actual lines from things. And so whenever I realized, because I kind of had the premonition as Kit was doing his speech before he revealed that she was going to do trials, I was kind of had this moment of dread where I was like, is he going to fucking say that she has to do trials again? And then he did. And it did make me think that maybe the author doesn't know how to plot a book. Because why are we reusing the same plot structure that we used in the first book again? The trials are also structured around the 3Bs. I don't know if you fucking remember the 3Bs from book 2. Kit tells Peyton, like, oh, my dad, he ruled... No, he doesn't tell Peyton that. Because she wasn't even in the same room with him. He says at some point, I don't actually remember, oh, my dad ruled with the 3Bs. And I think that sounds so fucking dumb because it's like a nursery, like a kindergarten rhyme. It sounds like there would be a song that went along with it so that you can remember this limerick of the 3Bs of how to be a good king. Oh my god. I thought that was like a private thing. I thought that maybe his dad told him specifically like, hey, if you shorthand how to be a good king, here are 3Bs, easy to remember. Apparently everybody fucking knows about the 3Bs because he tells everybody, oh, the trials are going to be structured around the 3Bs. Are you not embarrassed? Do you not feel embarrassed? I'm having so much secondhand embarrassment listening to you say that. The 3Bs are bravery, benevolence, and brutality. And if you're wondering how can benevolence and brutality coexist, I do think, like, okay, I know that I'm, like, working myself into being more critical of this book than I was at the beginning. I know that I said that the writing really improved, but it also hammers in on, like, 3 plot things. Like, the amount of times Peyton is just complaining, and not complaining really, lamenting the fact that she betrayed Kit. And she says this in like every one of her dialogues, every one of her POV chapters. It'll even be like, there's this very common kind of grammar structure that the author does, where she'll be like, I looked at Kit, who I betrayed. I looked at down at my hands, which once killed his father. I looked at the knife that I used to kill his father. And it's like you're explaining something and then like relaying to us why that thing is significant, as if I'm too stupid to remember that you killed his dad. Of all the things that I could forget, that's not going to be one of them. But it is also just like, I think that maybe one of the issues that I have with this book is melodrama. Like, I think that that's what I'm working myself into, is that it's so melodramatic. It's so over expository also, where it's like it just relays back the same emotional beats over and over, so we don't really have a chance to grow past that emotional beat. We don't really have anywhere to go from it because we're still hammering in on the same thing. It isn't growing, it isn't changing, we aren't developing any kind of like progression of the emotions or of the relationships. We're just going back to the same thing. You know, I look at Kit and I think about how I betrayed him that one time. I know, girl, that's how you've looked at him every time. Or Kai is even worse because he'll be like, I looked at Peyton, who I love so much, and I look at her finger and that evil wedding band wrapped around her finger that binds her to my brother, even though I'm in love. Shut up! I know! I've been here the whole time! We're gonna cut to the first trial. And honestly, like, I think the people of Ilya get it. Me speaking as if I'm a citizen of Ilya, she already did the purging trials in the first book. We saw the entire thing. We saw every moment of that. We watched her complete all the trials. We know that she went to Door and survived the way back. We know that she killed a man. I think we get it. Like, honestly, I think we get it. I think we fucking get it. What are we trying to prove with more trials? Anyway, the first one is that she has to go into the Scorches to this place called the Sanctuary of Souls, where one of the previous queens was buried. The first queen was buried. And she has to retrieve the crown from her corpse. So the first trial is grave desecration and grave robbing, which doesn't feel great. And she has a deadline of midnight. Like, she gets there, it seems like midday, and she has to come back by midnight with this crown that nobody has ever been able to find before for like hundreds of years. So it really just feels like, why would I even expect anybody to be able to do this? And what does it prove about her ability to be a queen? I mean, they do tell us, like, oh, a queen has to be resourceful and brave. Okay? Does she have to be good at finding things too? Does she have to be good at desecrating a corpse? Does she have to be good at disturbing a woman's eternal peace? She has to disregard religious rites? Like, what else does a queen have to do? Anyway, she goes into the Scorches. She's wearing black pants. Girl, what? And, okay, this lasts genuinely one chapter. She goes into the fucking caves in the Sanctuary of Souls. She finds the crown immediately. Not actually immediately. There's this little montage of her searching all the nooks and crannies in the Sanctuary of Souls. Finds it very easily, though, because, again, nobody's been able to find it in hundreds of years, and they've been looking, because whenever she's in there, she gets jumped by 3 grave robbers who are trying to find it too. So, like, the bandits are also here. They've been looking for it for, you know, hundreds of years. She goes in there at an afternoon, comes out before midnight with the crown, has beat up all these bandits, and they're like, okay, great, good, you did it. That's good. And she has this line where she's like struggling to get back to the castle with the crown in her hand. She's like, I can never let them see me be weak. It's like, girl, they saw you almost die many times in the trials. After you came back from the Scorches, they have seen you be weak far more times. Like, you go back to the King's interlude scenes, and he is at the birth of his second child, who, you know, is with the same mother as Kit, and she gives birth to a baby girl, and the king gives the baby to the person who checks what the power of the baby is, and the guy says, this baby has no powers. And the king is so pissed. And then in the real world, in the real timeline, Kai and Kit and Peyton and, you know, the whole gang go to a ball, and Blair is there. And I forgot that Blair has lilac hair. That's so fun. I really love the, like, anime style of this book, where, like, part of the plague is that people got superpowers, and another part of it is that people got weird colored hair. I love that. I love my silver hair, my naturally silver hair. Peyton goes and dances with Jax. If you forgot about Jax, so did I. He is the third brother of Kit and Kai, and he's like 15 or something, so he's, cute child that she goes and dances with. He is not relevant to the story, actually. He like won't show up again for a while. They also have their cousin Andy. She also comes back in this book. Also not really relevant. I hope that there are no Jax/Andy lovers out there, because they really don't. Could very easily be written out of this book. And Peyton, she's dancing with Jax, and she looks over and she sees Kai and Kit, and she's like, oh my god, they're both so hot. And I was really afraid in this moment that we were going to get a threesome. I was really afraid that I think that maybe Blood of Hercules scarred me for life. I do think that, actually. I do genuinely think that, because I think about that book almost every day. And it is ruining my mental health. But she sees them and she's like, oh my god, they're both so hot. I'm so afraid at this point that this story is going to resolve with them being a throuple. Because not that there's anything bad with thruples, not that there's anything bad with polyamory, just that two of them are siblings. Just to make that clear. But we'll put a pin in that. We'll come back to that. Her second trial is a diplomatic mission to negotiate peace with the city across the sea. The sea is called the Shallows. It is unnavigable, and there is allegedly a sea monster in it. So, this is supposed to demonstrate the second of the 3 Bs, which is benevolence. So she's supposed to broker peace. Does she know how to do that? Isn't this mission going to take, like, months to travel across this enormous sea that is unnavigable? Months to negotiate with this foreign queen who, by all means, may not be open to conversing with them, and also, how are you going to establish trade routes over an unnavigable sea? Anyway, does Peyton know anything about trade routes across uncrossable seas? About tax rates? About goods and services that Ilya can provide to these people that they're not already getting somewhere else? What about immigration policies? The sailors tell Peyton that there are these stories about how when the plague hit, it also affected some of the fish in the sea and turned them into sea monsters. I think this is cool. I think this is fun. I think it is interesting to kind of extend what the plague does and like bring it beyond and kind of make it, I think it makes it really interesting. I do wonder if there are any other animals that were affected by the plague in this way. Do you guys still have livestock? Do you still have food? Does it affect the plants? How are you guys eating? Are y'all okay? That's kind of where my brain is at. I do think it's cool, though. I think it's fun. And Peyton somehow didn't know this, though. She's like, I had no idea about this. She says, oh, I guess I didn't learn that when I was living in the slums, just to kind of, remind everybody that she's from the slums. And it's like, this isn't textbook information, girl. This is a folk story. This is gossip. They said there's a story that maybe some of the fish got turned into sea monsters. That's gossip. That's a folk tale. That's not that. What do you mean? The slums are exactly the kind of place you would hear about that. That's things that people spread mouth like. Kit is gonna stay at home, and Kai is like, well, we need someone to protect Peyton, so I'm gonna go on the voyage with her, because if it's anybody else, they might just be okay with killing her. And Kit's like, you know what, that does sound true. That really does sound accurate, so you can go. And so Kai is gonna go with her, and he says this fuck-ass line in chapter 24. He says, I'm no stranger to drowning. I've been doing that since I looked into her ocean eyes. And you know what? Now that I'm reading it back to back, he said the same thing in chapter 2 when he said that he was like drowning in her ocean eyes. So, you know what? I might have been a little bit too nice in the beginning of this video because maybe the writing hasn't improved that much. It does seem a little bit repetitive. And I had the question as I was going into this chapter, why does Ilya even have sailors and ships that are ready to launch if they haven't been able to use the sea in like years and decades, and the sea is uncrossable, and they don't trade with anybody, so it seems like it would just be safer and easier to travel by land. But this actually is addressed in the book, so we're good. The sailors were sailors before the plague or whatever, and now they're not. So they are out of practice, but they still technically have the skills. Yeah, so we've got some, 60-year-old men who haven't sailed a boat in 30 years are going to get us across the unnavigable sea. We're at sea for her second trial, and they're crossing the ocean, and they're going for a while, and Kai and Peyton have these little cabins on the ship where they talk to each other and sometimes sleep in the same bed and talk about how they wish that they could be together, but they can't. And at some point, Kai wakes up and he realizes that somebody has cast an illusion next to him. There's an illusionist or whatever on the ship, and they've made an illusion of Peyton so that he'll think that she's there. But actually, he's been drugged, and Peyton is not there. But he wakes up anyway, even though he's been drugged, and there's also an illusion, so I guess the illusion is just like a fail. Like, it kind of doesn't make sense that the sailors would drug him so that he doesn't wake up, but then also put an illusion there for when he does wake up. But anyway, it's a failsafe, I guess. He wakes up, he sees the illusion, he's like, oh my god, I've been drugged, Pey's kidnapped, and he rushes out of bed, and he sees the sailors are trying to throw her overboard, and he goes crazy, and he kills them all, and yeah, so he gets her. Mission accomplished, he saves her, and we arrive in Isram, which is the city across the sea, the shallows, and they get out of the ship and they're walking around, and Peyton is like, wow, it's so crazy that all the guards here, like, they all have weapons because nobody here has powers. And this is something that's emphasized as she's getting her first impression of the city, as she's kind of looking around and seeing what makes it different from Ilya. She highlights that the guards have weapons. Girl, everybody in Ilya also has weapons. Like, I do enjoy this comparison. I think that this could be a good comparison. I think it could really make a point about, like, the differences between Ilya and the rest of the world, the kind of over-reliance that Ilya has on their powers versus, like, actual tools. But everybody in Ilya has, like, you can't make the comparison if you've already established that everybody in Ilya has weapons. Kai always has weapons, you always have weapons. It seems like all the other guards also always have weapons. Like, you just can't make this after the fact comparison. But anyway, we go and we talk with the queen from Isram, and she slays. She's really cool. She's sitting on a throne of bones, okay? And she sees Peyton and she's like, hey, didn't you commit treason? Which is true. She did do that. And they negotiate in this conversation. Like, this is the only conversation that we have for the negotiation. And the queen is just like, you aren't offering me anything in return. You've just told me that Ilya's economy is shit and you don't have enough to feed people. You're offering me no goods or services. I don't like you. You've shut everybody out for decades, so that doesn't foster a whole lot of friendship. I don't really want to help you in any way, but I will. So yeah, let's open up trades. What? So she says, like, oh, Peyton, you remind me of myself, and so I will open up trade with you. Girl, is this how you run a nation? Like, You've just laid out so clearly why you don't want to and don't have to open up trade with this place, and you're just gonna do it because some girl asked you? Okay, I mean, this conversation, if you were to act it out, I think would probably take 10 minutes, and that is the only negotiation that we have. So Peyton is successful. She doesn't have to work that hard for it at all. She doesn't have to suggest really anything. The queen just agrees, which is great. And I do like the queen. I think that she's very cool. This is the only time that we will see her, so we're not going to revisit her, but I like to imagine that she would come back sometime in the universe of the story, and that she would be very cool. We get this other flashback to Edric, and it is at the same time that he's just sent away with his newborn daughter because he's found out that she doesn't have any powers, and he says, like, you know, get rid of that child. Kill it. And one of the advisors comes in and says, hey, you should marry my daughter because she is this very powerful woman and she already has a child, and you can just claim that the child is yours, and great, you know? Problem solved. You will have a new child, and you'll also have queen. Oh, because I forgot to say that the queen, who is Kit's mother, dies in childbirth, giving birth to the daughter. So she is now dead. The king is very sad. This guy suggests a new wife and a new child to kind of make up for, you know, what's lost. He has the child tested for how much power they have, and the guy who does it is like, this child is so powerful. This child has crazy power. So of course that's Kai. And the king is like, okay, great, I will do that, and I will tell everybody that my wife, the queen, actually died 2 years ago in childbirth to Kit. And that this whole time I have been married to this other woman, Iris, who is Kai's mom, and that he is my biological child. So put a pin in that. We'll be back to it. Kind of a crazy plot, but all right. So we're sailing back to Ilya. What do you think happens? I'll give you 3 seconds to guess. The sea monster attacks. Who would have thought? And what do you think happens next? She kills it. Okay, let's move on. They get back and Kit's like, okay, great, you're back. There's definitely something wrong with him. And, you know, you kind of pick up on this pretty... It's not super subtle that something bad is going on with Kit. He kind of has these moments, especially at night, where he doesn't seem to be all there. He's talking to people who aren't there. And he's just kind of saying stuff that doesn't really make sense. Peyton decides that she wants to go back to Loot Alley, where she's from, to see her house one last time, or the place where she used to live with Adina. And when she does, she runs into the guy that Adina dated while Peyton was in the trials. This is probably really fun for people who read the novella, but I did not, so I have never heard of this man, and I don't know what's going on with him. But he's also a wielder, so he has the same power as Kai. He seems fine. He does kind of blame Peyton for Adina dying. He's like he says that it's her fault. He's kind of pissed off with her. But they kind of seem to make amends by the end of it. It's like we don't leave off in the worst position. But he is kind of pissed off at her. We get this scene also, whenever she gets back to the castle, we get this scene of her writing love notes with Kai, and they're like slipping it under each other's door, like leaving love notes for each other. I was positive that this was going to come back in some kind of way, either that it wasn't actually Kai, that it was Kit who was leaving the notes, or that there would be a paper trail of like the fact that her and Kai were still in love with each other and were like still having a relationship while she was while she was engaged to Kit. But this just kind of is here. Like, this kind of doesn't pay off, which I guess is another issue kind of with this series as a whole, is that there is a lot of setup that doesn't really pay off. But let's move on, because Pey is going to confront Blair. She finally gets to see Blair. She's been trying to get to see Blair this whole time because she wants to kill Blair, because Blair killed Adina. And so she and Blair get into it. And Blair says before they get into it, "I'm sorry that that happened. It haunts me." And they fight. And they get into it, and I guess they knock over a candle or something because the whole room catches on fire, and Blair is horrifically burned. And Lenny, the next time we check in on this, Lenny is like, "Yeah, it was really rough. By the time I got there to break up the fight, Blair was dead, and I had to get rid of the body." Like, girl. And Peyton has the gall to be like, "Damn, that was kind of messed up what I did." Yeah. It was a little bit messed up. And I get it because she killed your best friend. Like, I'm not saying that Blair's a great person. I'm saying that the writing surrounding Blair was kind of misogynistic in the first book, and that I think that there could have been a lot of depth to Blair if we ever once for a second started to explore it. And see, that's the thing, is that whenever this conversation started, I had so much hope. I was like, oh, they're going to actually talk about this. Blair is going to talk about, I don't know, this like expectation of violence that has been enforced onto her, how she has been upholding the horrific actions of the king by like being compliant in his tyranny, and she, no, horrifically burned, skin melting off her face. Yeah, so unfortunate. I think that we really could have done something with Blair. I think that we really could have gone somewhere with this, and we kind of didn't. But Kai comes up to her afterwards, and he's like, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "I need to hit something. We need to go spar because I need to hit something. You just killed a woman. What, you still have aggression? You held a woman into the fire. You still have something that you need to get off your chest. Like, you still have something going on. That wasn't it wasn't good for you. That wasn't enough." Yeah, Peyton does talk at times about how she's afraid of this darkness that she has in her. She feels she's very capable of violence, and and that she kind of enjoys it. Sometimes she has this dark side that she leans into, and I think that that is interesting. I do like that about her. I don't know that we totally fully flesh it out. I don't know that it is completely addressed in like a meaningful way, but I do think it's interesting. And the third trial. The third trial is about brutality. The third B, if you're following the nursery rhyme. It's just a fight to the death. It's just a death match, and it's like, why does she have to prove herself by killing someone if she already killed the king, and like that's why we don't like it? I think that of all the three Bs, stay with me. I think that of all the three Bs, brutality is the one that people are not gonna question because she did kill the king. That's actually the whole point, is that she murdered a man. That's actually the issue. And I know that you said it was self-defense, but if you put someone into a death match and they kill the other person, I'd argue that that's also self-defense. Her opponent is Kai, though, and I did think this was juicy. Like, that's what I'm saying, is that, like, this book, does the plot make sense? Sometimes it does. Other times, it's very convoluted, and we haven't even really gotten to that yet. But is it juicy? Like, are we kind of serving with this book? Yes. It's serving something. It's giving us something. And see, Reckless gave us nothing, so this is a huge improvement. Yeah, her opponent is Kai. She gets there and he's like, we're gonna have to fight. And so they're fighting, and it seems pretty intense, to be honest, because she keeps having this dialogue where she's like, "I know he doesn't want to kill me," and then he'll like make the earth shatter around her, and it's like, girl, I don't know if he's really holding back on you right now. And then they're both getting kind of knocked around. She's not doing great because if you remember, Kai is a wielder, meaning that he can take on all the powers of everybody around him, and they've got like one of each power in this arena so that he can use their power. So she's up against everybody right now. And so she's not doing great, obviously. She's getting her ass kicked. And then they're kind of doing this, like, I almost said one-on-one, the whole thing is one-on-one, hand-to-hand kind of thing, and he keeps being like, okay, left hook, and then he'll do it, and so she has warning and she's able to dodge and all that. And eventually, so, like, she's doing okay, and it eventually comes to the point that Kai sacrifices himself and kills himself, basically, in the arena. It's like, it's set up as if it seems very obvious, like it would seem very obvious to the audience that he's the one who does it, so I don't know how they, like, let this match. I don't know how they were like, okay, she wins. Of course he dies. She's screaming and crying. She's holding him in her arms as he's dying. It was, you know what? I'm talking a lot of shit right now, but this is a good scene. I think so. I think that this was a pretty good scene. It was juicy. It had a lot of emotion. I was feeling the tension. I really was feeling the tension because there was a lot of, like, physical violence in this scene, and Peyton was not doing very well throughout a lot of it. Like, she was really getting her ass kicked, and I was really feeling that. Feeling, like, the physical toll that it was taking on her. So it was, I thought that this was a well done scene. But guess what? Kai is actually not dead, because what actually happened is that he got drugged again, and at some point I really do feel like this guy just needs to, like, if you're getting drugged twice in, 3 days? So he's actually fine, and it was a fake Kai who was in there, who was being projected by one of the illusionists to look like Kai, but actually it was somebody else with the same ability as Kai, and Kai tells her that he loves her. Sweet. She is engaged to his brother, so this is a very loaded statement, but, you know. And Peyton has this line where she says, in her internal dialogue, she says, I realize this isn't the first time he's uttered such a declaration. First of all, uttered such a declaration, are we serious? Like, is that how you want to phrase it? He said something before? It's just the melodrama of it all. He's uttered such a declaration. He said it. This isn't the first time he said that. Kid, he's describing, like, how he did this whole thing where he set it up so that she would think that she has to kill Kai, and it would, you know, show how brutal she is, but also, like, if she killed Kai and then Kai actually wasn't dead, it would make everybody think, like, oh wow, Kai is so strong, he was able to come back from the dead, like, he was able to heal himself from the dead. And it's like, that's not the reaction that I would have had. The reaction I would have had if I was in that audience is that she failed the trial. And we find out that the other wielder that they found who took the place of Kai was Adina's boyfriend, Mac, which I imagine is very difficult for the people who read the novella. I imagine that's very heart-wrenching for them. But yeah, so that's who it was. It was him in that arena, because he was pissed off at her for getting Adina killed, is the way that he sees it. But then also, I guess he changed his mind mid-fight because he did help her out. I think that, like, I do like this plot twist. I do think that the way it's written, it doesn't totally work for, like, it doesn't totally make sense that this would be the way that Mac is acting in this scene. It's really written as if it was Kai in that scene, and then that is, like, retroacted, so it doesn't really flow for me. There's nothing about that scene of the fight in itself that I think you can pinpoint and be like, oh, this is a clue that it's not actually Kai, and I think there should be. But, you know, maybe I wasn't reading into it enough. Maybe it's there and I just haven't read the novella, so I didn't pick up on it. So she has passed all 3 of the trials, and which means it's time for the wedding. And great! I really do wish that we had gotten more of Callum and Pei's relationship in this book and in other books. Because he's walking her down the aisle. She, like, she says, like, oh, you're the closest thing I have to a father. You should walk me down the aisle. It's like, closest thing you have to a father? I can barely remember this man. I feel like I can think about maybe, like, 3 scenes that you've been in together. So I do wish that that was fleshed out a little bit more. I think it would make the book so much stronger if that relationship was more in depth, if it had more development with it, if we saw them together throughout the book and like interacting. Kai comes to visit her and he has dirt underneath his fingernails, and Peyton is like, oh my god, you buried Mac? You did that for me? I cannot handle this. Is something I talked about in the Reckless video, is that Kai buries people and it's like treated like it's this very sweet thing that he does for people. Like he respects the dead so much. You cannot just bury people in the ground. Like, you can't just bury them in the ground like they're roadkill. Like they're the family dog. Like, you can't just bury people like that. Also, dirt beneath his fingernails. Was he using his hands? I'm being mean. I've done gardening before. I know that sometimes if you use a shovel, you still get dirt underneath your fingernails. You still get dirt on your hands. But the imagery of it is so funny that I can't pass up making that, pointing that out. Because it's just everything about the way that he's described burying people, like where they died, basically, is like he just starts doing it, and there's no grave marker, there's no kind of like rites for the dead or anything. You just get down and start digging. Like, you're crazy. You can't just do that. That's not a kind thing to do. Kai is going through this box of I don't know. She finds this picture of Kit's mom, who is the queen who died in childbirth to the daughter, but everybody thinks that she died in childbirth to Kit. And she looks at this picture of Kit's mom, and she thinks to herself, oh my god, she looks so much like me. And so at this point in the book, I was like, wait, are they full siblings? And so she's with Callum, she's like, wait a fucking second. That bitch looks exactly like me. I think that's my mom. And Callum's like, yeah, that's your mom. So he knew, and he was gonna let Kit marry her. The siblings, by the way. But actually, we also get a father reveal. Callum was actually Kit's mom's secret lover, so Callum is her real dad. So they are only half siblings. Hi, I don't know why, as soon as I found out that they might be half siblings instead of full siblings, my brain just immediately understood, like, okay, they are half siblings. And that's the truth. It's still very much up in the air. Kit says many times that he doesn't want his legitimacy to be called into question. So, like, he doesn't know for sure that, like, X actually is his dad and, like, Y is his face. Like, he doesn't actually know anything for sure. I don't know if maybe someone in this society has the elite power of paternity testing, but I imagine that that would be a problem for him if it was. Yeah, so I'm not really sure what's going on with that. I don't know how we would verify or deny that his father is the king if we don't have a person whose power that is. But I feel like it's definitely not outside of the realm of possibility that somebody's power actually is paternity testing, and like only paternity testing, because we had that woman in book one whose ability was just to project her voice into a large stadium of people as if it was a microphone, and I genuinely think that is less valuable than having your power be paternity testing. It is still very possible that they are complete sibling. Like, that's still completely within the realm of possibility. I think that my brain was just protecting me from that information whenever I was reading it, and just like fully convinced myself that they were only half siblings, but it's still extremely possible that they're full siblings. Callum says some shit and he's like, oh my god, I loved your mom so much. I wish you had died instead. Okay, rude. That's your daughter that you're talking about. And I do think that, like, this is where the plot really starts to get convoluted. If you've thought that it's a little bit difficult to follow so far, this is where it starts really getting convoluted, because I think that this is very clearly the author rewriting history, because it makes absolutely no sense that the king would claim that the queen died 2 full years earlier in childbirth to a different kid. Just for what? Like, how does that make any sense? And the way that he validates it is he says, like, oh, I was in such deep mourning and I was remarrying, so I didn't want to tell anybody. That is so weird. That's such a strange thing to do. And I guess you can do, like, I guess you have technically explained the plot hole. I guess technically that's an explanation, but it makes no kind of sense. It is like not a logical thing to do at all. I think that she wanted Pay to find out that she's secretly the princess. Like, I think she wanted that secret royalty reveal, but she didn't want Pay to be related to Kai because then they can't get together. So, of course, she has to be related to Kit, and the timeline doesn't really work out because Kit's mom, up until now, we thought that she died 2 years before Peyton was born, and Kit is a year older than Peyton. So, like, the timeline doesn't work out. Callum has this big villain monologue, and, you know, that's great. See, here's the thing, is that I was gonna skip this over because I thought it was too confusing, but I feel like you need to hear about it, because it's gonna make my point. Callum gives this whole villain monologue about how, like, you know, whatever the fuck, he's been controlling things behind the scene. Peyton is like, oh, I bet he's actually a duel, which is also what Kit is. He's also a duel, like, duel is in two, so Kit has water and fire powers. I really thought that that's all that a duel could be, and I think that up until just now in the book, that is all a duel could be. But she says, oh, I bet that Callum is actually a duel, being a mind reader and a controller. To my understanding, this is the first time we've heard of controllers, who has been mind controlling Kit so that he would do things like want to marry Peyton, even though Callum knows that they are half siblings. Yeah, so you know, this is the conclusion that she's come to, that he's evil and he's a duel. Okay, so that's where we are. Kai is watching from the sidelines, and he has his classic line. He has it again, this line that we've had in every single book. He says, beasts don't get the beauty, in chapter 60. Let it die. Let it die. Get rid of that line. It was never good. Stop. We find out that the whole resistance was a sham, and that the king had actually been controlling it the whole time, and there was never, like, truly a legitimate resistance, except there kind of had to be a truly legitimate resistance because Peyton's dad was in the her adoptive dad was in the resistance, and seemingly, like, was, you know, had the ideals of the resistance, but actually the king has been controlling it the whole time. I think that it's a little bit confusing how this works out. It also seems like the king started the resistance, not just that he had intel of the resistance, but that it was his thing. Now that she's married to Kai, now that she is married to Kit, and she's found out that she is his half-sibling, Pei just tells Kit everything. She's like, hey, we're fucking siblings. This, like, Callum just told me everything, so now, you know, I know what's going on. We're totally fucked. We're siblings, and now we're married. And Kit fucking kills Callum with a sword. And again, just to go back to that point about Isram, Kit has a sword. Kit's not even, like, a combatant character. He's got a sword. So what do you mean? You come to Isram and you're like, whoa, everybody's got weapons here. Apparently you have them when you're not even, like, a god. You're not even in combat. This is ridiculous, because Kit is like, well, damn, you know, we're having 2 marriage ceremonies. We're having the one in the palace that we just had, and we're having one in the slums. So now that we've already had the one wedding ceremony, we're gonna just have to do the second one, because we're already married. Do you not have annulment? Like, what the fuck do you mean we just have to go through with it now that you've found out that you're half siblings? Are you serious? You're just gonna... What do you mean? You don't have any kind of annulment? That doesn't exist in this world? And Peyton is like, oh, how am I gonna get out of this marriage? I don't know what I'm gonna do. You have a smoking gun. You have just found out that you are blood siblings with your husband. What do you mean? How am I gonna get out of this marriage? You're related to your husband. if they don't let you out of the marriage, like that, we've got other issues. And so they're kind of have this back and forth where they're just like, oh, this is fucking crazy, this sucks. And Kai is like, wait a minute. I would have known if Callum was a duel because I can sense everybody's powers. No shit. I'm pissed off that it took him this long to figure that out. What do you mean? And why didn't Peyton know that whenever she... why are you so stupid? Actually. Because also before this, I'm getting really confused with the timeline. When Peyton is like, oh, I found out that I'm the queen's daughter, it takes Kai like a beat to be like, oh wait, that means that you're siblings. And then it takes him another beat to be like, wait, why am I older than you if I'm pissed off at you is what's happening? Why are you so stupid that it's taking you this long to make simple connections? So Callum isn't a duel because Kai would have known if he was a duel. So I think that it's kind of needlessly complicated to have that whole thing of her thinking that Callum is a duel if he's not. And we know that very objectively, and we should have known that from the start because Kai can sense people's powers, and Peyton knows that Kai can sense people's powers. It was revealed that Kit knew that Callum and the Queen were fucking, and was afraid that he would get outed as being potentially illegitimate because he might also be Callum's son if Callum and his mom were getting together, then he might also not be a legitimate child of the king. So that could threaten his line to the throne. And we get this really... We're in the climax, I should say, because I feel like that hasn't really been clear. The plot structure has not been a straight crescendo. But Kit gets really pissed off, and he's yelling, and he's like, Kai, you like Peyton more than me. She ruined our lives since the day that she was born. She killed my mom. She tore us apart. She killed my dad. She's awful, and you love her more than me, and I'm pissed off at you, and I'm angry that Peyton has you and I don't. Kind of blowing up out of nowhere, but I get it. We've all had a crash out now and then, so it's reasonable, I think. He's been under stress, and Kai is like, well, guess what? We're not even related. And so we have this, we have this kind of, we go back for a second to the moment that Kit finds out, that Kai finds out that his mom and dad were completely separate from the royal family. So he and Kit share no blood. They have no blood relationship. I also just still think that they are siblings. So what I said earlier about it still being weird that Peyton and Kai are getting together because Kit and Kai are brothers, I still stand by that because they were raised as siblings. They thought of each other as siblings. They have a sibling bond. They have a fraternal bond. They treat each other like siblings. They are siblings for all intents and purposes. It doesn't matter. They're not blood related. That's my opinion. So I still think it's weird. But yeah, Kai's like, you're more related to her than you are to me. Which is rude. Which is fucking mean. And I kind of had this thought where I was like, wouldn't it be funny if Kit's real dad was Peyton's fake dad? Her dad who adopted her. Because Peyton's adoptive dad was a healer in the court. So he was in the area. He could have definitely had the opportunity to get with one of the noble women. And then it would kind of make sense why the king asks Kai to go kill Peyton's adoptive dad, because he's jealous of the fact that Kai is so much stronger than all the other children, but he's not actually blood related to the king. He has this kind of complex where he wants all the most powerful things to belong to him, and Kai doesn't technically, so it would kind of make sense in this vindictive way if he had Kai kill his actual biological father, as a means of asserting dominance over that, and that started to make a lot of sense to me. Started to really seem like that might be the truth. So, I was very surprised when that reveal did not come. I really thought, like, I had this moment of dread where I was like, wait. But I was wrong. And then Kit has his villain monologue. So I just said that we had a villain monologue from Callum like 2 chapters ago. Now we have another one, and it's a lot. Kit tells us that he wants to open up the borders and exchange resources with other countries that are laced with the plague that caused elites to exist. I didn't honestly really know that he could do that, so that he could expand their empire and create more elites, and it would wipe out most people, like it would kill most of the population, and like the other ones would get powers, or they would be ordinary, and so he could expand the empire that way and expand the rule of the elites. Okay, Christopher Columbus came out of nowhere with the smallpox blankets. And he also tells us the plan, oh my god, that the plague is man-made, which does make sense. I kind of think that's a good twist. And he's like, why do you think that we have a fever season? Girl, I didn't know that you did have a season. You've never told me about the fever season. How would I know about that? Apparently they have a fever season, and so the plague is imperfect, and that's why they have a fever season, and that's why it didn't infect everybody, and like there are ordinaries left over. And he says, like, I actually knew everything. I was working together with Callum. He wasn't controlling me in any way. I was hoping that Peyton would die in the trials, but I also needed her in order to open up communication with the other countries. So I think that this gets really convoluted, where it's like he wants her to die, but he also needs her to be queen so that he can legitimize that. He wants to open up trade, and like he needs her for that, but he also wants her to die. And it's just a little bit unclear about what his timeline is. And I know that he's not in a fit state of mind right now. Like, I know that he's not doing too well, but it was just a little bit confusing. Like, it was just confusing. He gave this, big box of roses to, jeez, be brought over to Isram with Peyton whenever she went to go on her diplomatic mission to the Queen, and that was laced with the plague. So now Isram has been infected, he says, and Kit tries to kill Peyton. And he says, like, you're the cause of all of this. I'm gonna kill you now. And he tries to kill Peyton, and Kai protects her, and he fucking kills Kit. He fucking kills him. And they're sparring, what the fuck am I doing? They're sword fighting is what I'm trying to say. They're sword fighting, and it's the same thing that they've done for years as children. But then Kit messes up. He forgets to dodge the strike, and he gets stabbed. And he's dying. And I do feel bad for the Kit girlies. Like, I know there has to be a sub-community of the Powerless fandom that really genuinely wanted Peyton and Kit to get together at the end, and this is brutal for them. This is, I think, possibly worse than what the Gale girlies went through. Like, this is brutal. They're siblings, and he's a colonizer, and he's, like, Christopher Columbusing people, and he tries to kill her, and he says that she's responsible for everything bad that's ever happened to him. This is brutal. I do genuinely feel for you guys. And so, sorry, being serious again, he's slowly dying, he's bleeding out, and it was actually really sad. Like, the scene was actually very sad of him just, like, slowly bleeding out painfully. It was actually really brutal. I really liked Kit until this scene. Yeah, until he revealed himself as a imperialist and a colonizer. I really did like him. Yeah, so he's slowly bleeding out in Kai's arms. I was like, damn, this is really rough. Like, this is actually a very emotionally moving scene. And then it went on for about 3 times as long as it needed to. Like, I could not believe how long this scene was. It felt like we had the amount of time that they were speaking to each other, like back and forth conversation with each other while he was slowly bleeding out. We could have saved this man's life. Definitely. Like, if one of them had gone and get a healer, if Kai had stitched him up with a sewing kit, I think that he would have been saved. If you had just put some pressure on it at any point, I think he would have been good. You know, I think we really could have saved this. But no, he's slowly bleeding out. He's having this excruciatingly long death monologue. Not even monologue, conversation. And Kai is like, all of Ilya will remember you as the greatest king. He ruled for like 2 months, so I don't think that's possible. We find out that the king, who is dead, their dad, was actually the leader of the resistance. And I thought that Peyton's adoptive dad was the leader of the resistance. That's a little bit confusing to me. It just doesn't totally make sense. Because we get this all through, like, this, like, they go through Kit's mail, and, like, or not his mail, his, like, diaries, and they see what he's been saying and what he's been writing about, how, like, he found out that the king is the leader of the, or maybe this is a flashback. We kind of get both. So I think it's a flashback that he finds this out, that the king is the leader of the resistance, and it's a sham this whole time. And that, I think, is kind of needlessly confusing, because what does this add? What does that tell us? Like, I see it as the plot twist, but I just don't think that in terms of, like, I just don't really think it makes sense. Did Pei's dad not realize this? Like, did he not know that? Yeah, it just doesn't really make sense. I don't know. He's the leader of the resistance, and I get him having, like, an inside source on the resistance. I think it's weird that he would create a resistance. Anyway, we also find out that Kit dosed himself with the plague, and that's why he's been in such a decline recently, like, because he's been experiencing the plague a second time. I don't really get why he would do this. It pisses me off, because you already have powers, and I think that he did it to, like, make himself stronger, to have this, like, double dose of the plague. Why would you assume that that would work? We get this second villain monologue from Kit, which is even more excruciating than the first. Like, again, like, I was kind of vibing with it at the beginning, where he was explaining how he was taking the plague and it was starting to affect him, and he started to, like, not really be doing well. I was vibing with it, and then it went on for so long. Kai and Peyton are like, what do we do about this? And they decide to not tell anybody about the whole, like, trying to overthrow the rest of the world and infect them with plague. And it's like, I get that, but also you already sent a gift that was laced with the plague to another country, so you're gonna have to figure that shit out. But don't worry, they actually don't have to figure anything out, because the queen sends them a letter, the queen of Isram sends them a letter, and is like, I sensed what you were carrying with you before you even stepped off the ship. What are you fucking talking about? Does she also have power? Like, genuinely, I think it would be kind of cool, actually, if we found out that the queen from Isram actually was a psychic, because Peyton's been presenting herself as a psychic this whole time, but if we found out that she actually was a psychic, I think that would kind of slay. But it's like, this is such a cop-out answer. Like, this actually is such a cop-out, because you had this whole villain monologue of, like, oh, I'm gonna do all this shit, I've already done it, you're complicit in it, and then it doesn't actually have any consequences. Anyway, he says, like, that Kit was in such a decline because his body was rejecting the plague, so they say. And I read that and I was like, isn't that what your body is supposed to do to a plague? Isn't that what isn't that just your white blood cells are rejecting the virus? You can reject a transplant, you can reject, like, that kind of thing. I get it, rejecting it is bad. A plague, I'm pretty sure you're supposed to reject. So Kit dies, and we've got, like, 6 chapters left. We've got, like, a while to go. And it's just a bunch of grieving chapters. It's just, like, a lot of them being sad, which is kind of brutal to get through. Kai becomes the king at the end. Obviously, he proposes to Peyton and they get married. And the very final chapter is them 5 years later. They have a baby. His name is Kit. I don't know if that was a good idea. I don't know if that was a good idea, girl. Because, the baby is actually a girl. I think I said he. But the baby is a girl and her name is Kit. which is like, I get that you want to name him after your brother, but he did try to kill Peyton. He did also try to infect the entire world with a plague. But let's remember the good parts of him. So their daughter is named Peyton, and whoop, their daughter is named Kit, which is very sweet, I guess. And they're like walking around indoor, they're seeing everything, their daughter is running around with them, and Peyton locks on to somebody across the street, and she realizes that it's Blair because she can see the lilac hair, and it says like one side of her face is horrifically scarred, marring her beauty. It's like, okay. And she and Pei lock eyes, and Peyton lets her go. And I think that's, I kind of like that this is how Blair's plotline got wrapped up, with like an act of forgiveness rather than further violence. I think that that's actually really important to Pei's character development. Yeah, so they're happy. They're king and queen now. Trade has been opened up. They've gone through with all the things that Kit said that he was going to do. Just obviously Kit is dead. And they've actually gone through with it because Kit actually didn't want to go through with it. So they've actually made some major improvements for Ilya, which is great. Then we have an epilogue. And I thought to myself, like, oh, I thought the 5 years later was like our epilogue, but we have an epilogue. And the epilogue is from Kit's perspective, and this like actually did almost give me a panic attack. Because the epilogue is Kit in the black void of the afterlife, meeting death, and she kind of leaves after a little while. So he's just in this black void of nothingness, being extremely lonely and like depressed and reflecting on his actions on Earth and just like being upset with the way that his life ended. And it's like so awful to read. But then eventually his parents come to him as stars in the black void, and he doesn't remember who they are. It's actually really devastating. I'm actually having a hard time talking about it. Like, it's just, he doesn't remember who they are, but he just wants company. Like, oh my god. And they promise that they'll stay with him until Kai is able to like meet up with him in the afterlife. I feel like Ava should have been with him. Ava being the little sister of Kai and Kit. She was biologically related to Kai. I guess maybe not. But anyway, she was thought to be biologically related. Actually, they shared a mother, so they are half siblings at least. Biologically related to Kai and like, adoptively related to Kit, potentially biologically related to him if they did both have the same dad, that dad being the king, because we never get confirmed or denied that Kit actually is illegitimate or not, so like they could also be siblings. I feel like she should have been with him. I think that would have been sweet. Anyway, it's actually just a really horribly depressing and devastating place to end the series, and I'm so sorry that that's where I leave you. But, yeah, this book was insane. It was a good time. It was a good time. I think that my overall criticisms, the plot was insane. Like, I was having a good time because it just felt like drama, and like there was always something happening, so it always felt like, there was something for me to pay attention to. It wasn't difficult to stay engaged. But the way that it came together, I thought was clunky, Like, I just think that a lot of the plot points were disjointed. It didn't totally make sense how they fit together. It felt like there was a lot of, like, retroactive writing where we were correcting something in the previous books that she no longer wanted in this book. So it just kind of didn't work great on that level, but it was a good time. I was having fun, It was a good time to sit through. It wasn't difficult to read. I was enjoying myself. So, here we are at the end of the series. Oh my god. Been talking for a long time. But yeah, that's it. That's where I leave you, unfortunately. Yeah, let me know your thoughts. If you also read this book, if you agree, disagree, that's fine. Happy to talk with people from all ideologies. Yeah. I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching this long. I love you guys, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.